Have you ever wondered about the incredible level of detail in ancient rituals? Well, today, we're jumping right in and deconstructing one of the most specific ones out there, the grain offering. We're going to break down the ingredients, the exact methods, and the deep, deep symbolism behind it all, straight from the original texts.
So this is really the big question, isn't it? What was this thing, really? And why on earth were the rules so specific? I mean, the level of detail is just astounding. It makes you realize this wasn't just about dropping off a gift. It was all about how you gave it. Every single ingredient, every little action, it was all laid out for a reason. So let's unpack that.
Okay, first things first. The grain offering wasn't some minor, forgotten ritual. Not at all. As we're about to see, this was a really fundamental act of worship. It was a personal, direct way for an individual to come forward and present a gift.
And the language used in the source text, it's just so revealing. It's called a food offering that creates a pleasing aroma. Right away, that tells you it was meant to be sensory, devotional, something you could smell and experience, not just a symbolic gesture. And that phrase, most holy, well, that just elevates it way beyond a simple gift. This was a sacred transaction.
To really get the whole picture, we've got to look at the parts. The rules were just meticulous, not just about what to bring, but about the quality of every single ingredient. It mattered. A lot.
So, here they are, the 4 essential elements. And notice, it's not just flour. It had to be the finest flour. That signifies you're offering the absolute best of what you have. Then you've got olive oil, a staple of life, and incense, which created that pleasing aroma. And finally, salt. Oh, we are definitely going to circle back to the salt, because it was critically important.
You know, sometimes the rules are just as much about what you can't do as what you can, and what was left out of the grain offering is just as important as what was put in. The source is crystal clear on 2 things that were absolutely forbidden.
And the contrast here is just so stark, isn't it? On one side, absolutely no yeast or honey. Yeast, it often symbolized corruption or decay back then, the stuff that puffs up and goes bad. And honey, while sometimes offered separately, was a no-go for the altar fire. But on the other side, salt. It was an absolute, non-negotiable requirement for all offerings. This wasn't random. These choices were packed with meaning.
Now, when you hear grain offering, you might picture a simple scoop of flour. But nope, it was way more involved than that. The source actually describes several different ways to prepare it, which allowed for different situations, maybe different harvests.
Turns out there were 4 main ways you could do this. The offering could be baked in an oven, cooked on a griddle, fried up in a pan, or presented as the very first produce of the harvest, which was called the first fruits offering. Each one was a totally valid way to perform this essential act of worship.
Let's drill down into the details for a sec. If you baked it, it could be thick or thin loaves. The griddle version was a kind of crumbled flatbread. If it was pan-cooked, it was mixed with oil. And that first fruits offering, that was really unique. It used crushed, roasted new grain, right at the start of the harvest. But you see the common theme, right? The finest flour, the oil, and absolutely, positively no yeast. Okay, so you've prepared your offering perfectly, you've followed all the rules, now what? Well, what happens next is this very specific, step-by-step ritual that unfolds right at the altar.
The whole process was so methodical. First, the worshiper brings the offering to the priest, who kind of acts as the go-between. The priest then takes out a symbolic piece. They called it the memorial portion, which was a handful of the flour and oil, plus all of the incense. That part gets burned on the altar. And the rest? The rest of this most holy offering actually went to the priests for food, to support them.
And this quote, right here, it just sums it all up perfectly. The memorial portion creates that pleasing aroma for the divine. But the rest, which is also called most holy, served a super practical purpose. It fed the community's spiritual leaders. So it was this beautiful blend of symbolic and functional.
And this brings us back to what might be the most emphatic, the most powerful instruction in this entire ritual. It all comes down to that one ingredient we mentioned earlier, salt. And let me tell you, its inclusion was absolutely non-negotiable.
Just listen to the weight of that command. Do not leave the salt of the covenant of your God out of your grain offerings. Wow! In the ancient world, salt was a preservative. It symbolized permanence, loyalty, the enduring nature of a promise, a covenant. So including it was like a physical reminder of the permanent bond between the worshiper and God. This was not just seasoning, it was a powerful statement of commitment.
So when you put it all together, the finest flour,
No yeast, the covenant of salt, the specific portions for the altar and for the priests, a really clear picture starts to emerge. This was a world where every detail mattered. Worship wasn't casual, it was incredibly intentional. It was this practice built on offering your absolute best, remembering your commitments, and literally sustaining your community. Which kind of leaves us with one last thought. What can this ancient focus on detail teach us about our own modern rituals and the intentions that we bring to them?